everybody, this is Fish in a Bowl. I am one of the assistants slash patrons slash helper people for the refinedr&d Discord, and I am here to give some advice and tutorials about the digital storage mod. A bunch of changes have gone on recently. There was a big huge update that came out earlier this week. Mr. Hid has been hard at work making a ton of changes and quality of life fixes, so I wanted to get a video out there to kind of just go over the entire mod from start to finish, so kind of help everybody along with stuff. So let's just get into it. We're going to start with going over just like the hub unlocks and milestones. You don't really get into DS until tier 3 here. So when you get into tier 3, you can start with the basics networks milestone. This is what's going to unlock the very basic stuff like your network distributor, power adapter, the cables, poles, storage terminal, drive terminal, and your server racks. This is some of the bare minimum stuff to get a network going, but with this alone, you won't be able to actually store anything yet, which leads to this second milestone in tier 3 for basic storage drives. This gives you a basic 1U height server that can hold 4 drives and a basic 256 drive. Bare bones just to get you going. The next step is going to be once you get to tier 4, where you have the access to get fluids. So basically this is going to unlock your fluid server and your fluid drive. I forget offhand if that includes the gases. I don't think it does unless it's somewhere different. We'll check in a second. It might include the gases, it might just not say, but we'll double check. So in tier 5 is when you get the network factory. So this is when you start getting into some of the more advanced stuff. You get the wall outlets, you get your 2U servers. These servers can hold significantly more servers. You get 12 servers in each, or 12 drives rather, in each of these servers. Sorry, that was a little messed up in the wording there, but you know what I mean. So once you get here, that gives you access to that stuff. And then this is also where you get access to the basic wireless. So this is for a wireless tablet for accessing your inventory remotely while being around your factory, and an access point to stick on the wall, just basically like same as your house. You know, you spread access points around to get wireless coverage. It's great. And then range extenders. These are used actually in the towers, which is in a later milestone. So it's a little misleading. These don't go with the access points. You can't upgrade these access points via these extenders directly like this, but they are used in the MAM research that extends these. So that's, I think, why they're included here. When you get into tier 6, that's when, just double checking, yep, that's when we get into network crafting. So this is what starts allowing you to do on-demand crafting of things. So it gets you access to your crafting server, your crafting terminal, here's the gas stuff. So the gas stuff gets along with network crafting, so that's up there. And then the last thing, I don't think there's anything. Oh, sorry, 2 more things. So in tier 7 is your bigger wireless. So this is what unlocks your big wireless tower and the smaller ground antennas. This is part of basically a larger, like, map wide wireless for when you want to connect multiple bases farther apart or bring in remote resources, etc., etc. And we're going to get into all of this, you know, shortly here. The last milestone is in tier 9. There is nothing, as far as I'm aware, in tier 8. Tier 9 is where you get temporal crafting, which is just the atomic crafter. This is basically an end game on-demand crafting. It pretty much replaces crafting servers as well as the crafting adapters and all of the machines that go along with it. It's kind of a magic box. Basically, you request an item, this thing takes in dark matter residue and a bunch of power and just magic boxes the items, and you get them back into your system. It's great. So that's all the milestones. Now, when you unlock in one of these, I think it's when you get the factory milestone is when you also start to unlock the adapters. So there's a bunch of MAM research that goes along with this mod that you got to make sure you don't miss. Otherwise, you'll be like, why can't I do anything that I'm expecting? So obviously it's all complete on mine, but basically We get your essentials starting right up top here for some cable. This left-hand tree covers all the adapters. So you have your basic storage adapters, your resource adapters, your train cargo adapters. I'm not going to show you that last one on the bottom because it's a secret. Your other adapters, factory, crafting, depot adapters, pipe adapters, etc. Your middle tree here is access point range extender. So remember I was talking about those range extenders before? That's why they're unlocked in that earlier milestone. So you can use them to extend the range of those little smaller access points here. And then this right tree is expanded drives, so these are all of the larger drives for both items down this middle line here, as well as gas on the right and fluid on the left. We're going to go over all of these items here shortly. So now that we've kind of covered all of that stuff, how you unlock everything, now let's go over kind of the basics that a network needs. So every network, regardless of what you want to use it for, requires a couple of basic things. First and foremost, your network is going to require one of these. It is a network distributor. It basically looks like a giant tower. It has a connection on one side for network cable for hooking up to the rest of your network. It needs to go to a wall outlet or a pole on the ground, something like that. One of the network poles, something like that. It can't go like directly to a terminal or something like that. It needs to hook into kind of like the rest of the network itself. And then there's also a power plug on this side. It's a little deceiving because you have your power adapters over there, which I'll show in a second, which also you think power adapter, that's where you get power for your network, but the distributor itself also needs its own separate power connection, so don't forget about that. This network distributor is where you configure all of your networks. So right now you can see I have 3 main networks, and then this is the blueprint network for the blueprint that I created that I'll be sharing and using later. But basically you come in here, if you want to add a new network, you just click the button on the bottom here, it puts it in and give it a number like 3 test network, and then if I hit save, it'll save that network. And now if I wanted to, I could link here, and that would change this whole network here in my base to be that network, which I'm not going to do, but that's how you would do it. Once you link the network, that's how you start getting everything else in that network to connect back to this. It'll do it automatically, but you need to have the network distributor linked first. And you'll see in the network we're going to set up later that when you first create the network, it's going to be offline because there's no power adapter and they're not hooked all together correctly. So I'm going to show kind of the network boot up process later on when we go through that section of the tutorial. So we're going to save that. The next thing a network needs: power adapter. So at least one power adapter needs to exist on every network. Each power adapter is going to provide 1,000 megawatts of power to the network per adapter. So the good thing though is it can provide up to 1,000 megawatts per adapter, but it's not going to use 1,000 megawatts just for being connected. The adapters and the network is only going to use however much power it needs. So you can see, like in my instance here, I have 5 adapters connected, giving me total max production here of 5,000 megawatts, but I'm only actually using 3725. So my actual production for the network, it's going to match my consumption. So that extra whatever 1,300 megawatts is not actually being used. So it's not like you're just burning 5,000 megawatts for having 5 adapters or whatever it is. So that's great. It also tells you here it lists all the devices in your network and how much power they're all using. So this is a really nice way to just easily tell how much power your network is using and what some of your your big users are. Obviously in my case, the wireless stuff is pretty big because I have a number of antennas, etc. After your power adapters, you need to have at least one storage terminal to be able to access the items in your network. So there are 3 different types of terminals here. First one, the basic one, is your storage terminal. This is where you can see all of your items in your network. You can filter your items here by name, by quantity, ascending, descending, however you want. You can search for your items here, do whatever you want. It's great. To get items out of the system, you click on an item till it shows up in the box here, and then you tell it how many you want, 10, and then this determines if it's going to export that item either to this export buffer here or directly to your inventory. So 9 times out of 10, you're probably going to want your inventory. So I almost always just click that, request items, look at that. There's 10 more items. You want to put them back in, shift click, it'll go into the import buffer and just get pulled right in. Provided that you have the storage space for it. So that's what comes down to the servers and drives over here, which we'll get to shortly. So that's your storage terminal. You can also see in here your network stats. This will give you a statistical view of all the items in your network and what their rate is coming into and out of the network, how much they're being used, how often much they're being produced, et cetera, et cetera. If there's no movement on those items, it'll just show 0 per minute. But if they're actively being used, you'll see what your plus or minus is on your items here. Really helpful. The next terminal is a crafting terminal. This is an optional terminal, so you don't need this one on your network. This is for doing on-demand crafting tasks, which we're going to talk about later in the on-demand crafting section. But the other terminal that you need to have is this drive terminal. This is what you use to configure a format, configure, partition, filter, everything with your drives. We're going to go over this in a little bit more detail here shortly. But just know you have to have one of these, otherwise your drives are essentially useless, because when you first craft them, they're just basic unformatted drives that stack, and you have to format them first to be able to use them in your storage. And then the last thing your network needs is a server rack with some servers and drives in them. So this network storage rack can hold, a bunch of servers in it. You can have a mix of whatever you want. So you can see in here, I have item servers, I have gas server there, fluid server there, crafting servers. This is all 2U servers, just because better drive storage efficiency, but you could mix 1U servers in here as well, which in my farming setup, which you'll see shortly, has a mix of other servers as well. So you need at least one of these racks and at least one server. It could be a 1U server, for just 4 drives, and that's what all you're going to have at the beginning. So you just use what you can when you start. And that's the bare minimum you need to be able to have a functioning network and just be able to start putting items in to store them, period. When you first start out, you're not going to be able to automate stuff with them. It's just going to be for manual storage. But as you quickly progress through the mod, you'll be able to do more and more with your items automatically. So that covers the basics of a network. Now let's get into the drives. So as we said, you need to have all of your servers here. Your servers need to have drives in them. So each server gets drives in them, and by clicking partitions under here, you can see what that drive currently has on it, if anything, and what you can see. There's a shadow back there. It's kind of hard to see. Let me see if there's any items in here that I don't have. No. I think every item in here is filled, but you can see there's like a shadow image back there because I have these partitions filtered. You can choose. You don't need to have only one partition per drive. It's just personally how I do it. I just use one drive per item. It's easy for me. But you can have multiple. In fact, I think somewhere in here I have a drive that's like that, but there's not many. I think I just had like one randomly when I was there's one for stuff that I don't have much of. So you can do it like this if you want. To do all of that though, that's what that drive terminal that we talked about before is. So to configure a new drive, come into the terminal. It's going to show you the drives up top here in the relevant items, which is handy. You can just shift click a drive in. Remember, you have to slide the lock up to lock the drive in place. Otherwise, if you don't, this isn't going to let you do anything. You have to lock it in place first. Now, you can come and name your drive and format it. Successfully formatted. Once you do format it, you'll see statistics about the drive, the total size, the number of current partitions, the max number of partitions, the power consumption, etc. When you first format the drive, you can't just go use it right off the bat because it doesn't have any partitions on it. Just like your regular hard drive in your computer, you got to format it first. So You can either do that through the drive templates here, which come, well, these format templates won't be here. It'll just list these four at the top. These give you a quick way if you want to just put, you know, one partition for 100% of the drive, or maybe you want to do 4 partitions and have it be a quarter each. You can easily do that just by clicking a button on here. So let's say we want to do 50-50. I can just click 2 here, exit, and now when I go to edit drive, there's already 2 partitions in here defined. And then that's all I need to do. I could, if I want though, define filters. So I'm going to now delete this second partition. Now this new partition, or the old partition here, is now only half the space. So I'd have to put it up to whatever the heck this is for the full space, but I'm bad at math. So I'm just gonna do that. And it's gonna tell me up top. So that's that. Good. Updated. Free space 0. You pretty much always want to get to free space 0. Why waste any space? You can also rename your drives in here. If you named it wrong when you formatted, or say you just want to rename your drive after the fact, you can do that up here as well. And then you can also put a filter on a partition here. I recommend personally always using filters. The reason being, if you don't use filters, say you're constantly importing items into your network, and say your drive for that item is already filled. If you put in an unfiltered drive into your server that you may be intending to use for something else, it's going to instantly start filling up with whatever's coming into your system. So personally, I always filter my drives. So, oh, look at that. Employee of the Planet Cup, save, exit. And now when I take this drive out, if I hover over it, you can see on the bottom there, there's a tooltip, which actually I don't know if the tooltips are enabled in the current public version yet, because we're waiting on an update for SML, but eventually you will see those tooltips on the bottom right there that say the name of the drive, the current number of partitions out of the max, and the current usage of the drive. So now if I come in here to, you know, one of these servers, I can put in that drive. You can also see up top now it says formatted. And now if I look at the partitions on here, you can see there's the partition we created with the full amount of drive space filtered for those cups. And if you want to wipe a drive, you can come back, put it back in the terminal here, and you can wipe a drive right from here to restore it back to one of the stackable versions that doesn't have anything on it. But be warned, this will delete everything on your drive, and it's not it's irreversible. So think before you do this. Don't come complaining if you delete an entire drive worth of like really important things. So that covers drives. Let me just make sure I covered everything there. Yeah, so the drives, I think it's obvious at this point, drives come in multiple different types. There are item drives, gas drives, and fluid drives. So when we look, you can see there are fluid, gas, and item drives. The drives get bigger and bigger in size. They pretty much just double consistently. So as we talked about, you're going to start with those basic 256 drives, but then as you do the MAM research, you'll get 512, 1K, 2K, 4K, 8K, so on and so forth. There are 32 and 64K drives down here, and you can see the recipes get progressively more complex. First, you just have a basic assembler recipe, and then once you make the base drive of like an item drive or a fluid drive or a gas drive, every subsequent drive uses the previous size in its recipe. So you can see like 512 is just a 256 plus more smart plating. 1K is that plus smart automated wiring, more automated wiring, ACUs and computers in a manufacturer. Whoa, getting a little spicy. More stuff in a manufacturer. Even more stuff in a manufacturer. And then we get to the quantum encoder. So this is the new recipe stuff that we just put in recently. It should all work. I tested it all. Let us know if it doesn't. I think that's everything for drives. We talked about all that. Yep. All right, moving right along. That covers networks. Let's get on to adapters. For that, I made a little tutorial area out here to talk about the different adapters. So the very basic adapters that you're going to get access to at first, which are used just for pulling items out of crates, are the storage adapters. It says export and import. It's only one type of adapter, but they can do both, exporting or importing. So this is just a simple test that I set up to show, or an example I set up rather, to show that these things, your DS network is going to go as fast as the fastest possible belt. Like these are Mark 6 belts, and it's keeping up. It's consistently keeping the stack at 100, and this one, it's importing it as fast as it's coming in. So don't be worried that your system is not going to be able to keep up with your belts or anything. That's never going to be an issue. To do exporting, when you come in, before I even get to that, one thing to note with storage adapters, when you're putting them on crates, you cannot have a belt attached to a crate and then put an adapter on it. You have to have no belts on the crate when the adapter goes on. The reason for that is that DS has these handy dandy little covers that get put on stuff that is connected to the network that has an adapter on it. This cover for the crates is going to change from side to side based on whether you're importing or exporting. So in this case, I'm exporting from the network to the crate, so the import side of the crate is covered because the import is coming from the network, not from a belt. If I had it set like this one for importing from the network, or to the network rather, then the export side of the crate is covered. So that's why you can't have a belt connected when you first put on an adapter. You have to put the adapter on first, come in here, set it to what you want to do and save it, and then attach your belts after. That's important to note. So configuration wise, when you come into your crate after you've put an adapter on it, you're going to see there's a new tab here. In this new tab, it's going to default to import network. If you want to export, you just click over here, and then you can search and define up to 6 different items in a storage adapter. That will likely be changing in the future, but for now it's 6 items per adapter. When you set it up over here, this first box here, when you're exporting, is going to tell the adapter how many of this item to put into that crate. So in this case, I have it set to 100 here. That means that it's only ever going to try to put 100 up to 100 copper in this crate. That's why it's not filling every slot in this thing. If I put 500, you would see 500 sitting here, and then it would constantly get pulled out and fill up that last stack over and over. So you gotta, you can limit how much you're putting into the crate if you don't want to fill the entire thing, or if you're defining multiple things in here. If you don't put something like this, they're going to fight with each other and try to fill every slot, and it's going to be a mess. So if you use this, you can say, only put 1 stack of each 6 items, and then it's only going to use up 6 slots. In addition to that, you can use this little gear button here to define conditionals, which is something that we're going to get into here. Where did I want to cover conditionals? I think I'm going to cover conditionals at the end of the adapter section because they're kind of universal to all adapters and they're really important. So I'll cover that at the end, but that's where you get to them, the little gear icon. And then you can, delete an item from here, and always remember to save after you make any changes. Otherwise, when you back out and go back in, it won't update. And then you can copy and paste adapter settings from here between adapters of the same type. This copy paste is different from like if you look at a building and hit Control-C and then Control-V to another building to copy and paste the building settings, like for the overclock and recipe and all that stuff. This copy paste is different than that. So don't think that if you just Control-C and Control-V on a building with 2 adapters that it's going to copy and paste the adapter settings, because it won't. You have to do that. You have to go into each one and copy and paste. Again, there will be a better way to do that in the future, but that's the way it is for now. On the flip side, for importing, it's basically the exact same thing, just in reverse. You define an item, you can do conditionals, except in this case, the number that you put in this box here tells it how many of this item to leave in the crate. So if I put 50 here and hit save, it's going to let it get up to 50 here, and now it's going to start importing anything above 50. If I set it back down to 0, it's going to pull everything. Easy piece. That is storage adapters as far as I know. Let me double check. Yep, good. Next adapter, factory adapter. Factory adapter is when you want to do continuous crafting of something, or crafting to keep something in stock. So when you put a factory adapter on a machine, you basically set the recipe that you want initially. So say I wanted to use this to craft iron rods continuously. I'd come in here and see it's already doing it just by the virtue of the factory adapter being on here. So as soon as you set a recipe and have a factory adapter on here, it's going to start doing stuff. And in here, this is actually, it's already showing you conditionals without me intending to. So this is basically what conditionals look like. It's just saying export iron rods when the network has greater than or equal to 0. And this one, it's a little deceptive because this is basically means you have to have at least one of the item in there to, or no, you don't, because it's greater or equal. So you'd be fine. I usually say, oh yeah, no, that is what you do. You're good. Never mind. Okay. So this will just do continuous crafting. But if you wanted to limit something, like personally, I don't just do continuous crafting like this because it can lead to, like I was talking about before, extra items coming into your system that you don't want. So personally, I always limit stuff and I say craft whatever this part is when I have less than, 8192. Personally, I use 16K drives for almost all my stuff. I usually limit my export of an item to half of my drive space to leave half the drive for overhead. That's just personal preference, but that's how you would do that. Now, I'd like this to stop. We'll just do that. Cool. Crafting, that's the factory adapter. There's really not a ton to it. It's just automated factory stuff. And then again, you can copy and paste. This is useful for when you have like a whole line of stuff. Like I have a whole line of smelters over yonder just producing copper nonstop up to a certain point. That's the factory adapter. Next adapter is the crafting adapter. The reason I didn't put the crafting adapter on here is because there is really nothing to it. And I'm going to show you how simple it is. You don't, like, for a crafting adapter, all the crafting adapter does is make all of the recipes that this building can handle available to the on-demand crafting system. So all you need to do with a crafting adapter is go to a machine whose recipes you want to make available and put it on, and then connect it to your network. You can daisy chain now, which is real nice. You can daisy chain your adapters, and once that's on, it's on the network. That's literally all you have to do. You don't need to come in here and set a recipe. Doesn't add a tab. All this does now, by having a crafting adapter on, like on a constructor, for example, this now means that in that crafting terminal that I showed you before, where I mentioned it's for on-demand crafting, now any recipe that calls for a constructor can use this constructor to do its crafting. And it'll just come in here and it'll change the recipe automatically based on the craft that it's doing. So if you have a crafting adapter on every single production machine that the game has, you can theoretically craft anything in the game. That's it. Crafting adapters, dead simple. But we will talk a little bit more about crafting in a few minutes here. The next adapter is the pipe connection adapter. So this is used for importing or exporting fluids and gases to and from your network. So you put it down, it's got two sides to it. It has an input side and an output side. And depending on which side you connect to, is what you're going to use it for. So in this case, like I'm connected to the output side. So I'm going to export from the network. And it's configured very similar to the storage adapter, except it can only do one fluid. So like in this case, I have a fluid buffer over here. Say I wanted to fill this fluid buffer with water. I know I have water in my system. I could just come over here, export, water, save. It's going to immediately fill up. And water is coming in here. And there we go, look at that. Water's coming in. So easy to fill up, storage if you want, or to pump into machines, which you'll see in a little bit. I'm going to show you the farming setup I have over here. You can see, you'll be able to see how those are used. You can also do the opposite. If you had to go into the back then you could import to the network and pull the water going in. So simple. You can use this for any fluid or gas. Very basic. Next adapter is the depot adapter. This basically lets you use the DS network to keep a dimensional depot full of items to upload to your dimensional storage. So say in my case, like, I don't think I have any automated wiring here. I don't have automated wiring in here, so I know I have it in my network. If I wanted to use this depot for automated wiring, you just come into the depot adapter. It's forced gonna put you on export because you can't import, so from dimensional storage. So if I just put automated wiring, click save, done deal. It's gonna immediately start just filling this depot and uploading until I have, you know, full 250 stack of wiring. Again, you could define conditionals in here to say only upload if I have, you know, greater than or equal to, you know, 8192. That way, you know, if you fall under a certain amount, it doesn't keep outputting, etc., etc. Which is exactly what it just did. But then we can get rid of that, save, and now it's outputting again. Really simple, great for doing, you know, mass uploading to depots. That's what I have actually in here. See, I have like a whole stack of depots over here just with all daisy chain stuff. I have the one that I put over there is where I pulled out of here. So really convenient. That is the depot adapter. Next adapter is the train adapter. So basically is just another storage. It's basically just a storage adapter for a train station. So in the train station, puts a tab. It's gonna hard code automatically to if the station is set to load or unload. And then again, you can define up to 6 items to export or import to from the network based on conditionals as well if you want. It's the exact same, you know, config as the storage adapters. So really simple. Did that get out of there? Cool. That's that. Last adapter that is currently in the game is the resource adapter. So that is used for importing automatically from miners, pumps, or oil extractors. So these are really helpful. So instead of having to like do a belt output into a crate and then put a storage adapter on the crate to import the stuff, you can just put an adapter directly on your miner here and then import the item. It's going to automatically hard code to import for the item that extractor is doing. And then again, you can do conditionals. So like I'm only transferring in when I have less than half of a 16K drive worth. Really helpful. That is that. I do believe that is everything about adapters. And as we mentioned, the adapters are all unlocked in the MAM in that left-hand tree over here with all of the adapters, etc., etc. Yeah. So next, let's talk about wireless. So we already mentioned that there is the small wireless. So you're only going to start out with the smaller access point wireless that goes. Those have to be placed on a wall or ceiling and connected to it with a wire, and these basically just provide short-range wireless for these tablets. These tablets are used just like a storage terminal. Access your network with anywhere within range, and you can, you know, pick an item here, say 10, request, comes in your inventory, put it back, it goes right back in. Super easy. Also though, with the tablet, you have these filters. So with this is pretty crazy. Basically, this allows you, it's similar to the dimensional depot in the sense that like it gives you items that are accessible anywhere, but it keeps them directly in your inventory. So it shows you all the slots in your inventory, and you can basically pick a slot and pick an item for that slot and say what you want to do, like how many you want to keep in that slot, either a full stack or a certain amount, and how you want to handle if it already has an item, if you wanted to clear the slot, do nothing, blah blah blah. So basically it can keep every slot in your inventory full of certain items, so you always have that number of items in that slot as long as you're within range of your network. It's pretty cool.
That's the wireless tablet. And like we said, it's accessible when you're in range of wireless. You might notice here, I don't have any wireless access points on the wall. The reason for that is because I have a wireless tower here. So there is a difference between local wireless and what I'm calling hub and spoke wireless, kind of from the networking world. So basically, the local wireless is the wireless for your tablet that comes from the access points on the wall or from these towers, but specifically in these towers from the extenders on the right here. These extenders only affect local wireless for your tablet. So you can see on the map here, this orange circle represents the current range of my local wireless for my tablet. These extenders increase the range from a base of, what is it? I think 40. Base of 40 meters all the way up to the max here of 490 in increments of every 20 extenders. So if you put in 19 extenders, you're not getting any range upgrade. Once you hit 20, you get a range boost. You put in another, you put it 39, you're not going to get an upgrade. You put in 40, you get a boost. Or, well, you will get a boost, but you won't get, a tier 2 boost, I guess you could call it. It's every 20. That's for the local wireless. The hub and spoke wireless is for connecting far apart areas. So you do that by having a central wireless tower. So this is your main base or any facility you have, and then you connect it to the ground antennas. These are smaller satellite towers that, unlike the bigger towers, don't transmit local wireless at the same time. These are only used for hub and spoke connecting back to your big towers. So you can connect an infinite number of ground antennas back to one of these big towers. In this UI for the main tower, you can name your transmitter up here, your tower up here, and that updates it on the map, which is super handy. And same for the ground antennas. In the UI for those, you can name them as well to make them easier to identify, on your map. And then each tower has a unique ID, and so does each antenna. So to link two together, you can use this little copy button here to copy the uplink ID. And then when you get to a ground antenna, so let me just place one down. If I wanted to say link these two, if I copied this, come over here, pasted that in and hit link, now they're linked. So now if I were to connect, wireless off of here to a pole, I'd be able to then connect, anything I want to this pole, and it'll expand it'll extend this base network out at this antenna's location. And you can also see the power usage from here. But the cool thing too is that you don't need to link it just by copying and pasting the ID like that. Personally, I almost never do because I'm forgetful, and I always forget to copy the ID of my tower before I go place a ground antenna. But what you can do is when you place a ground antenna, when you're out in the boonies, you can just come in here, click the transmitter that you want to connect to, and it will fill in the ID there, and then link. Look at that. Super easy. You can, again, name your antennas out here. Save. And then it should, on the map here, I'm on top of it, but it should have updated. Yep, tutorial antenna. Ta-da. Super useful. That is wireless. Let me see. Did that cover everything? Another important point, just to make it obvious, the range for tower to ground antennas is infinite. And it's, again, not determined by these range extenders. You could put a tower with 0 range extenders and connect to an antenna on the other side of the map. Not a problem. And it'll also, in the tower here, list all of your linked antennas, and you can unlink them here one by one if you want to. That covers towers. Talked about the tablet. Talked about that. All right. That is pretty much all of the basics.
Now we're going to get into a couple of best practices, and then we're going to go over some examples and demos, and then I'll unleash you all in the world to cause chaos. So some best practices. First and foremost, it's a really good idea to do subnetworks for each major facility. While you can, use the ground antennas to expand your main base network is bigger and bigger and bigger to as many facilities as you want. The downside to that is then you have one central storage for servers in one location, unless you're putting servers all over the place. And even then, all of the items are going to be listed every time you open it. It's way easier to put a separate network at each facility, usually with its own tower, so that way you can bring in remote resources from far off locations to that from like resource adapters on miners and stuff like that. And then if you need to bring like another network to that location, you can just use a ground antenna connected back to another network to bring that in. So like, if I'm not mistaken, no, that's not how I'm doing it over there, but it's a way you could do it. I don't really recommend just making one global network for everything, because it's going to get messy very quickly. Second major best practice that I can advise is to, like I was talking about before, always set filters on your partitions and your drives, because I almost guarantee somewhere you're going to forget to configure a conditional, or you're going to have something constantly importing nonstop. And if you have a drive and a partition that's currently filled with an item, and then you throw in an unfiltered drive, it's going to just be first come, first serve with whatever item gets onto that partition. And then you have to try to empty that drive and deal with it. And it's just a pain in the ass. So I'd recommend not doing that. Just filter your partitions and your drives. You'll thank me later. Next best practice, conditionals are your best friend. I mentioned it before, but doing conditionals on your exporting for factory adapters or crates, whatever, is highly advisable, so that way you don't fill your drives to capacity. Goes back to the last point about filters on your partitions, etc. So like for me, like I was talking about before, I always use half of a drive as my partition space, or like my input cap, so that way I leave overhead on every drive for manual imports or crafting fuck ups or something like that. So pretty much every machine that I have has a limit on the export to half of the drive space that I have for that item, which some of these might be wrong, because I'm pretty sure I'm using 16K for this, so that what it should be more, but whatever the case. Every one of these things has a conditional on it. All of these tier 8 and 9 machines up here have conditionals on them. The quantum encoders over here have conditionals on them, because again, like, why constantly run something if you already have enough of it? It just doesn't make sense. So that's another big suggestion. Last point is for wireless. If it is like a small little outpost that you're connecting back to your main network, and you need wireless out there, just throw a small little AP out there. It's not usually worth throwing a whole tower out there unless you're going to use that as a hub for something else to connect to other places. And that's pretty much it for best practices. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do a little demo. We're going to do from start to finish, setting up a network, starting to bring in some materials, talk about crafting, all that kind of stuff. So I picked a little spot over here. I already set up some miners. So we're going to set up a basic network over here. And we have 2 iron nodes here and a limestone node with tier 3 miners on them. So we're going to automate pretty much all of this with DS and make stuff available for everything. So to start, I have a blueprint here that I'm going to have available in the description, that basically just instantly gives you a bare bones DS network. One click,
places everything down that you need, and has most of the connections already done. Even comes with some signs that explain exactly what to do to get it online. So basically step one, you're just basically going to connect in some power to one of the 2 poles in the blueprint. Let me get this connected over here as well. Once you do that, you've got power coming into your network. Then we're going to go over to your distributor. You're going to rename, if you want, and renumber this blueprint network that's in here. So let's make this, you know, tutorial network 50. Save. Once you do that and save, did I just break it? No, sorry, no. Then I have to link it. Maybe? I might have broken it. I think I might have broken it. That's not smart or great. What did I do? Say you don't have power, but that feels like a lie. Try that again. Hey, there we go. Now that linked. Now that's online. Okay, that was weird. I don't know why it happened, but if you have to, just delete the network, recreate it, link it, done deal. Now we have a bare bones network. Let's get rid of these 3 signs. And that's your first basic network. Now let's get some storage on this network. So we have a server rack here. We are going to put a server in it. We're just going to use a 2U item server, and we are going to put a drive in it. So I already have sitting waiting here in preparation a 16K drive. Let's name this Limestone. Format it. I'm going to give it 1 partition of max size. Filter it for Limestone. Save. Exit. Pull the drive out. Put the drive in. Now we've got storage space for Limestone. While we're at it, let's think ahead. We're gonna know we're gonna need, or we know rather that we are going to need storage for iron ore. Use the templates. That iron ore. I'm going to want, let's put this down here and turn off auto sorting. I'm going to need iron ingots, format. Oh wait, forgot to actually do this. Ingots. All right, 4 ingots, good. Let's do iron plates. Do and the last one we're gonna do is concrete. Cool. I got concrete, iron ore, ingots, rods, and plates. Boom. So now we have drives ready to go for all the items. That covers the storage space, but as I'm sure you guys are aware, we don't currently have anything in here. Let's change that. So we've got our limestone miner right over here, and it's already full of limestone. So let's come in here, do a resource adapter. Let's be smart and let's just pre-put them on, all of them, so they're ready to go. Now we are going to connect into this network
with some network cable. Keep in mind these network cables have build mode, so by default it's just going to be on default mode there. As you scroll through them, it'll change the adapter type. So if you're on a, an adapter type like a factory adapter, the nice thing about this is if you have a line of existing machines and you're set to factory adapter, you can just click from machine to machine to machine and it'll place adapters and daisy chain them as you go. Pretty handy. Set that back to there. So we're going to connect this right into there. Notice instantly the adapter's online. It starts pulling in. We're going to put a conditional on here. We're going to say when you have less than or equal to 8192 using my half of the partition method. And immediately you can see we got limestone coming in. So let's do that for the other two as well. Just so we start bringing in the iron ore right away because we know we're going to need it. So let's put a pole out here. Let's put another pole over here. Should be fine. Let's connect you back to there. Poles and wall plugs can all have up to 10 devices each. And just like the power poles, it shows you the number of connections when you look at them with a cable. Real handy. That covers all that. Let's do the same with our conditionals. I could have copy and pasted this one, but I didn't think of it. Cool. So now we've got our raw materials all coming in, ready to be used for whatever we want. I'm going to show wireless here shortly, but we'll use that a different resource for that. We'll bring in like copper for that or something, if I can find it close by, or like dirt. Sure. Let's do that. Let's configure a drive for dirt so it's ready to go. Actually, I don't know what kind of dirt that is. Let's go find out what kind of dirt this is. If it's regular dirt. Yeah, might have jar of dirt. So let's make dirt. And that'll be for later. For when we talk about wireless and show wireless. Cool. All right. So first, we are going to show how we can use factory adapters to automatically process that the limestone into concrete and the iron ore into ingots. So for the concrete, we need constructors. We're bringing in 120 per minute. The recipe for concrete, that's not going to be... if we do that, it's 1545 per minute, so 2.2, we'll just do 2. So if we do, and this is so easy to do, you guys are gonna love it. So you just do simple 2 constructors. Let's get our power connected into them. Let's set our recipe for concrete. Copy and paste. Good. Let's put our factory adapters on there. You'll notice with the factory adapters, even with a recipe set, it won't show anything on the adapter until they're wired into the network. So you have to actually come and wire them into the DS network for them to actually show anything and start doing stuff. So again, we're gonna limit 8192, save, and now we'll do copy and paste. Boom. Easy peasy. And it's that easy. Now we have concrete being processed automatically from our limestone. It's literally that easy. And same for the iron. Let's do a handful of smelters. Daily chain smelters, good. Let's do like 1, 2, 3. View, sure. Let's get our factory adapters. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's connect them to the network. Let's get power. Iron. Copy, paste, paste, paste. Again. you can see just how powerful DS is when you start to get used to it and good, because you wind up being able to set up entire factories in no time at all. So already now in like what, 5 minutes or something, we have automated, you know, rest stuff coming in, super easy, no belts to have to worry about. Life is good. That covers factory adapters. Let's now cover some on-demand crafting. Although, actually, no, I lied. We can't do that right now because I think there's some bugs with it. But we'll show you what you would have to do. So normally with on-demand crafting, you'd place down your crafting server. You have to have at least one crafting server in your network to be able to do on-demand crafting for crafting tasks to go to. Now, say we wanted to automate everything you can get from iron, or everything, rather just everything you can get from constructors. So it's going to be even more than that by default. So let's say we put constructor over here. That's going to bother me. Doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me. It bothers me. It bothers me a lot. Oh well. So if we put a crafting adapter, oh, didn't want to do that. It's fun. So now, again, no selecting a recipe, but now if we came in here and did like iron rods and hit craft, I think it'll work. I don't know if it's going to crash, so I'm not going to try it. But normally you would just hit, you can set the amount here like 50, click off that box, it tells you that it's going to make 50. Normally, if it doesn't have an item that it needs to do a craft, it'll list the components that it needs below here. So like if I wanted to make modular, it needs all of this material to make 50 modular frames, which it can't do obviously because it doesn't have everything, but rods, it sure could. If I hit craft, it would send that job to the crafting server and start crafting it. And the way these work is that basically on-demand crafting takes, when you request a job, it queues it up as a task in here. Oh, this is also something I forgot to talk about before, so I'm glad we're here. In the on-demand craft, in the crafting terminal here, this is also where you can set alt recipes for stuff. By default, when you request a crafting task, it's going to try to use the vanilla default recipe. If you want it to use an alternate recipe, you have to define it here. Say I wanted to use the other supercomputer recipe, rather. Say I wanted to use the OC recipe, you have to define that in here to be able to use alternate recipes with on-demand crafting. This will show you any currently crafting tasks. But when you request a craft, so say I requested, 50 modular frames here, and I hit craft, it's going to send that job to this crafting server, and then it's going to instantly or very quickly import as many of the items as it can that it needs, and then it's going to start crafting. And then it's going to keep all of the output from the sub task crafting for all of the components, the main part crafting, everything. It's going to keep all the output on this crafting server until it reaches the requested number of items, and then dump everything back into the system here. That gets a little weird when you have sloops. Sloops with on-demand crafting doesn't work right because the adapters don't know, and like the crafting terminal and server doesn't know that there's a sloop in the machine. It just knows that a machine exists there to handle the recipe. So it's gonna, when you go to like put an amount in here, if your machines are slooped, it's gonna not give you the half amounts in here. It's gonna tell you you need the full amount, and it's not gonna let you craft it unless you have the full amount that it thinks it needs. But then what's going to happen is it's going to start doing the craft, or it's going to send, like, so say you have all sloop machines, you request a craft, it's going to make you, like I said, have all the parts for it. It's going to send all of the parts it needs for the full non-slooped operation to the server here. It's going to start processing the job, and then once it gets the requested number of items that you asked for it back on the crafting server, it's going to cut the job off and spit back onto your drives not only the output from the job, but all of the half of the leftover ingredients that it didn't use because of the sloops.
and it's going to have problems if you don't have the drive space for those items. That's part of also why I recommend that use, you know, only bring in up to half the drive space kind of thing to leave for overhead. All of that becomes a moot point once you use the Atomic Crafter, because you can't sloop the Atomic Crafter, and Atomic Crafters bypass crafting servers altogether. So once you get to that point, it's a moot point, but something to keep in mind. That's on-demand crafting. You know what? I was gonna show off the wireless stuff, but I think we kind of showed that enough over there with connecting antennas. It's really simple to do. That's pretty much it for, you know, creating basic networks and stuff. Now I'm just gonna show a few examples of stuff, you know, how it can be used. A simple way you can add in existing storage, like say you have like a storage mall like I have over here. I'm going to show you just like how you can easily add in an item to your network. So like in this case, I have this storage mall. A lot of the items in here are already being in the, like on the DS network with adapters and stuff. But say I wanted to add an item, say I wanted to add like solid biofuel to my network. What I would come over here and do would be configure a drive first for solid biofuel. Let's do our stuff. Biofuel, save, exit. Throw that in one of these servers. Sure, now we have the drive space for it. Then all you need to do, like I said before, you can't put a storage adapter on a crate if it has a belt, so just delete the belts that are attached to it. No more on the back. Put a storage crate adapter. Click in. I'm going to import biofuel less than or equal to 8192. Save. And then I'm going to connect you up to the network. That's that. And then I can put my belt back. To keep that being filled from the bottom where it's coming into. Ta-da! And that's literally all there is to it. Super easy to add existing storage into your network. And now somewhere down here it should be biofuel ? Yeah, there it is. Coming in nice and quick. That's that. What else? All right, let's see. So like you can also use this for DS stuff. I mean for Ficsit farming stuff. So this is an entire Ficsit farming area. We've got water drills coming in here, farms for every different type of crop with the seed extractors, etc. And all of this is being managed by its own DS network here. We have all of our different dirts and crops and seeds and all of that stuff, water, all on here, and that's all being stored on these servers. So we have, you know, the different types of dirt, biomass capsules, doggo chow, all the different types of seeds, all the different types of actual outputs, water, fertilizer, etc. And then all of that stuff is being controlled via control panel. So say I wanted to spring this whole network to life. Let's turn everything on. Turn on the seed extractors. Let's turn all these to group mode. Turn on everything, and everything springs to life, and it's all being handled by the DS network. So all of these seed extractors, the farms, everything turns on, and it all gets managed with DS. And you'll just see items coming in and out of the network as it keeps to all of the conditionals that I've set. Really, really helpful stuff. And let me just do that to turn everything off for now. I think that should, yeah, that turn everything off. Okay, cool. I'll reset that later. The last thing that I'll show this can be used for is for reactors from refined power. So this is a whole reactor facility that is all automated. Again, using DS. And notice again, separate subnets. So this was its own network. That farming area was its own network. And keeps all the items separate, which is really nice. And in this case, you see there's extra terminals here. It's because I have access to my main network here, because I brought it in via a second set of poles here, because this is also how you can pass items between two networks. You can use storage crates with one crate on one network outputting items, going to another crate on another network pulling items in. And I'm using inventory filters here on slots to keep it from filling this crate, just because I didn't want, you know, a full crate full of extra things. So all of these are just factory adapters, again, like before, with conditionals set to keep up to a certain amount of everything, and to keep up to a certain amount of everything, and to keep up to a certain amount of everything. And now, then the reactors are over here. Now this is a little tease of some things to come. There are fully automated reactors here, all by DS. So this is stuff that is coming soon. You will be able to automate many much things, many other mods via adapters, and it will be glorious. All right, I think that pretty much covers it. We went over all that. All right, that's all the basics to the network. So in a wrap up here, basically there has been, you know, kind of as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, there's been a lot of changes to DS recently. So, you know, be ready for that. If you have questions, there is a Discord for refinedr&d. You can find it in the description of the video. And I'll have a link down there to the Discord. There are helpers like me, myself, and others in there that are, you know, always there to answer questions. There's bug report section where you can post bug reports. Mr. Hid, the lead dev, is like the most responsive, fastest dev I've ever seen in terms of fixing stuff. Him and I have worked extensively for the last, you know, month or two on these updates. The guy codes unbelievably fast, so, you know, come by the Discord if you need any help. We are more than happy to help out. The blueprint for the basic network that I used before, this will be in the description of the video, and I'm going to be making more blueprints for things like, you know, groups of a couple constructors, groups of smelters from both vanilla and modded versions of those machines that are already pre-wired for DS and all that. And I'll probably be posting those in the Discord. So if you want those blueprint packs as well, once I make them, stop by the Discord and they should be available shortly. Aside from that, just wanted to shout out Mr. Hid. Like I mentioned before, he's the lead dev for this mod. He has been amazing for getting these updates out. Like I mentioned, him and I worked a ton these past couple months on this stuff. He put up with all of my nonstop pestering about all these ideas, and, you know, really took this idea of putting the items on the drives directly and all that kind of stuff and ran with it. I kind of complained when DS first came out in 1.0 when I realized that, wait a second, items don't seem to be stored on drives like I thought they were, and it facilitated him rewriting the entire mod with a brand new feature that got implemented in 1.0 that he took it upon himself to learn it within like a day or two. So huge shout out to him. You know, thank him from the bottom of my heart. Big thanks to Miss Burb, helped doing a ton of the testing. We are still actively testing stuff for new features. There is more to come, so be ready for it. There is a Patreon for refinedr&d. If you want to become a Patreon, that gets you access to a couple special channels in the Discord and dev builds of the mods when they are ready for dev testing before they get released to the public. So stay, you know, come check that out if you're, you know, into that stuff. And finally, I'm not really a big YouTuber or anything, but I will be releasing upcoming videos for tutorials for the other refined mods like refined power and Ficsit farming and potentially maybe a Ficsit Networks integration video for these 3 mods, because these 3 mods all can integrate with Ficsit Networks, as you saw for the farm over there, and you can do some pretty powerful stuff with it. So I might make a video for that. So if you are interested in those, feel free to comment, like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff, the typical whatever YouTuber stuff. Other than that, thank you very much, and hopefully I'll see you all in the Discord. Thanks. Bye.